Good morning. Good morning to everybody online. Hello, Dottie. Hello, Jean. Hello, Delilah. My sermon title today is The World is Our Neighborhood. At this point, you know you're stuck with me. We could say that today's message of loving our neighbor as ourselves is a version of the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But the Bible keeps us on our toes, seeing if we're paying attention or not. It says to love thy neighbor, and it also says to love thy enemy. To be honest, sometimes these can be the same people. Since I'm talking about our neighbors and our neighborhoods, there was a pastor down south that moved into a new neighborhood, new church location, and he and his wife got all moved in, and she said, I need you to just get out of the way while I put the house in order. So he got on his bicycle and he rode through the neighborhood to see where it was he's going to be preaching this town. And he come across a little boy sitting next to a lawnmower that had a for sale sign next to it. And he stopped and said, well, selling your bicycle or selling your lawnmower, little boy? He goes, yep, I'm tired of pushing. I'm going to sell this, make some money. I'm going to buy a bicycle and I'm going to ride. And he said, well, this is your lucky day. I'm new into town and the grass at the parsonage is up to my calf. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll swap you your lawnmower for my bicycle, even trade. And the little boy says, oh, that's a deal, done. So later that afternoon, the little boy's riding up and down through the neighborhood on his bike, and he sees the pastor. He's pulling on a ripcord. He sees the little boy and says, son, you've cheated me. This lawnmower won't start. You sold me something that's no good. You swapped me. He goes, oh, no, it runs fine. It just needs a good cussing. And the pastor said, whew, son, I'm a man of God. He says, I gave that up decades ago. He says, I wouldn't even know how to cuss. He said, keep pulling that ripcord. It'll come back to you. God is writing us an amazing story for each one of us. Every day is a new chapter, and he wants us to be the star of the show. He wants us to be in the lead role. Let me ask you men a question. You come home from work, you're tired, you sit down on the couch, and your wife walks in the room. She sits down next to you, and she whispers in your ear, would you take me to the movies tonight? Now, because we're men, we're going to answer a question with a question. So what kind of movie? Well, we know what the answer is before we asked it. It's going to be a love story. Now, ladies, here's a little secret. Men don't really give a care about a sappy love story as long as there's a villain to defeat and an epic battle to fight. Now, men, close your ears, ladies. We don't really mind the love story as long as there's that battle there. But life isn't just a sappy love story. And it's not an epic battle. Life is the story of a villain who's out to destroy us, and an epic battle that we face off against, and the hero who comes in and saves the day. And that hero is always Jesus. This morning we're going to talk about the love story because it all starts there. Every great story has a love story, and ours is no different. Actually, it started before we were born, and go back further, it started before Adam and Eve. God is love. We know this deep down 110%. And in 1 John, we've got John saying this. He doesn't tell us God is a God who loves, even though that's true. He doesn't say God shows us love, or God displays love to us, although that's true as well. He just simply says God is love. Love is who God is. It's his nature and it's his core. That explains a lot of things. It explains why he hates sin, because sin separates us from love. It explains why the Bible says God is a consuming fire who is passionately and jealously in love with us. Not jealous like a teenage boy-girl crush thing, but more like a parent for their child. God is love. He wants the best for us. Each one of us is a unique creation, and each of us was lovingly made in the image of God. We're one of a kind. How about that, Steve Baylog? You're one of a kind, my friend. One of the greatest errors that we could ever make is thinking that God needs us, because he doesn't need us. He didn't need the world. Before the universe was created, he existed in perfect fellowship with Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. He didn't need anything, and he wanted for nothing. But he chose to make the heavens and the earth and to put Adam and Eve in the garden. Why? Because the Bible says God loved us before he knew us. And even though he knew that Adam and Eve were going to betray his love, he made them anyway. Because God's love is not open for discussion and it's not open for debate. His love doesn't depend on whether or not we love him back. He loves us anyway. That's the story of the Bible. The story of a God who loves us unconditionally and passionately, even when the lover he's chasing continues to scorn him and betray him. Once upon a time, there was a man who decided he wanted to live in heaven. He really wanted this because heaven's a place where good people go when they die. Now, he didn't want to go to heaven. He just wanted to live in heaven, right here, now, in this present world setting. So what he did was give that type of love daily in his life. His name was Fred Rogers. You know, to live in the state of love and be surrounded by love makes a fluffy guy like me warm all over. Is it easy? Nope. Is it something you need to work at? Absolutely. Mr. Rogers found that out too, but he dedicated his life to perfecting his dream, and he worked hard at it. 8 different times within the Bible we're told to love our neighbors as ourselves. It's one of the most repeated commands in the Bible. It's the opposite of being selfish. Our extending this level of love demonstrates that not being selfish is possible within each of us. Mr. Rogers took us into a world of learning about ourselves and learning about those around us, our neighbors. Everyone had value and everybody was loved. Feelings were discussed, and he showed us how feelings differed. He was a cheerleader for everybody. Above all, he was honest with himself and honest in his being willing to share that we don't know all the answers. An important teaching in loving our neighbor as ourselves is that we should realize that we shouldn't wait for when we ourselves feel loved before we start giving it to others. The commandment made it pretty clear. Love your neighbor exactly as you love yourself. No more, no less. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the most important of the commandments. The second is pretty similar. Love your neighbor as yourself. God accepts each of us just the way we are. So shouldn't we accept those around us, our neighbors, just the way they are? If you have a puppy and you give it love and show it kindness, that dog's going to grow up to be obedient and love and be kind to you. So will a neighbor. So will a coworker. I made it a personal mission a couple years ago to win a doctor over at the hospital. The man was a few years older than me, spoke very little, and it bothered me. So he'd make his rounds in the hospital. I'd say, "Good morning, doctor," and I got nothing. This went on 1 month, 2 months, 4 months, 6 months. Finally, "Good morning, doctor," and he grunted at me. I considered that a win. I got a response. Not long after that, we were at Great Northern Mall pushing our daughter, or I was the pusher, in the stroller. And who's coming toward us but this older doctor pushing a baby? His baby. Right away, there was common ground. And it opened up and he started talking with me. I worked hard at it. There are the great commandments of Jesus, as told by the prophets, is about our bond with God and with our fellow man. Right away, Christ lets us know, loving our neighbor as ourselves, because once we put God at the center of our love, we learn how it is to do the same for our neighbors. I told you about my nose running when I preach. I'm not crying. I know what's coming. I used to feel a little guilty about Christ's command to love my neighbor because I didn't even know the people living next to me when we moved in. That surprises you, doesn't it? In the words of my dear mom, she said, "Son, when you were born, you were blessed with a gift of gab." You've heard me share my Joeism number 1. It's not easy being Joe, but I'm best suited for the job. I like me, and I'm completely happy if you laugh with me or laugh at me. I have big shoulders. Most of you are probably wondering at this point, in this day and time, who is included in the phrase, my neighbor? Keep in mind, during Jesus' time, it would be the village and the town you lived in, the people you interacted with daily. Now we think about the people that live across from us, next to us, and behind us. But with technology, your neighbor can be in another country. They can be across our own country through a Zoom meeting. Our neighbors are close and far. But in Jesus' eyes, a neighbor is every living, breathing human that was created by God and whom Jesus died for. Did you know love is proactive? When we moved into our home, we had all retirees around us. Absolutely loved it. But within a year, we had all widows. The men had died. At some point, we had 4 sets of keys in our kitchen for the widows living in our neighborhood, should they need us. When they needed checked on, they needed groceries, they needed to vent, Barb was there. One next to us had a blind husband. When he fell, I'd go right over, pick him up, no questions asked. This is loving your neighbor. That's what you do. I spent New Year's Eve, the stroke of midnight, in the hospital with a neighbor who I followed there by squad. You do this. This is your neighbor. But for years, that love returned to us, and it arrived in the form of nut torts on our anniversary, paprikash, stuffed cabbage, homemade bread, and this is why I'm fluffy. These kind souls also became grandmothers to Maggie. Did you know that love is observant? To have a good neighbor, you need to be a good neighbor. I've heard that a good neighbor is the one that smiles and waves at you over the fence, but he doesn't climb over. Take care to pay attention to your neighborhood. That's a start. All of us have places to go. We work, we volunteer, we go to school. These are places that are not out of our way where we can extend kindness and love others. Did you know that love is compassionate? Responding to someone's need instead of feeling sorry for them is being compassionate to the circumstance at hand. I saw a great example in June. Larry and Kim, when a member of this church, their son, experienced a huge health crisis that was life-changing. While people were genuine and being sympathetic, the outpouring of compassion shared was amazing. Information was shared, prayers were offered, support was extended. This is compassion in action, and it was done in a heartbeat. Did you know that love is responsive? There's never a right time to do the wrong thing, and there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. Just strive to always do what's right. Do everything you can to the best of your ability with the time you have to do it. When you stop your life and respond to somebody else, you're showing them that you care. You're not making the statement, "Here I am, look at me." What you're saying is, "Here I am, how can I help you?" Some friends of mine in Lorraine took the point of love being responsive to a whole new level. My friend Tracy had a friend, and she was dying. And she asked her, "Would you look out for my husband Billy when I'm gone?" Not only did she honor that promise, but her husband and her children and the in-laws and the neighbors, they all did. When Billy's health failed, they moved him into their home. He was their family. They were loving and caring of him. When the car left the driveway, he was in it. When they went to sporting events or outings or picnics, he was with them. He was included in everything. They even took him out of state to see his own family. It was the right thing to do. No second thoughts. Did you know love is healing? When you act on something, you have that potential. And that's all of us here. We have the ability to be the best you're capable of being. When you respond to somebody in need, you have an obligation. Did you know that love is costly? The price of love will differ in different forms for each one of us, but God's always going to bring us opportunities to display the love to others. But remember, the price is always costly. It will always involve us saying no to something we want to do, go that extra step. Did you know that love shows no partiality? When I think of how I should be treating others, I step back and think about how does he treat me? He's patient with me, he's kind with me, he loves me unconditionally in my faults. He's my friend, and he has faith in me even when I question Joe. When I need comforted, he's there to do that. Just the way he's treating me, that's the manner I need to also treat those around me. In my prayer time to work every day, I pray that I can be an extension of Christ in everything that I do and by the people that I cross paths with. This isn't always an easy task because we need to love our neighbor as ourselves. I just try to choose my neighborhoods wisely. I've seen people in need on different levels in life. I've seen people who look in need, but they also are not. A few years ago, there was a girl that roller skated with our daughter, and she was walking in the rink, and she saw a fella standing there, and assuming that he was in dire straits, gave him $1 out of her pocket. Well, come to find out, that gentleman's daughter skated inside as well. He had just been mowing and working in the yard and came the way he looked. So he really wasn't in need, but in that young girl's eyes, she felt moved to give him $1. So how do we love our neighbors? We can be generous with our time, with our talents. Just being kind and including them in our prayers is a start. We should be generous with our material wealth even when it's small. To be a man of high ethics requires a willingness to sacrifice personal material gain when that type of success crosses the lines of morals and human dignity. Set high standards and stay true to them. Sometimes one of the most important but difficult things to do is flash a smile. But I don't see that being a problem in this church. Be at peace with yourself, and it will roll over to those that you interact with. We've held grudges, we've held anger, and we may have even plotted revenge at a time. But these things will fester into negativity, and they're going to create ongoing conflict. Be the bigger person and forgive. Let it go. Daily I make it known in my prayers that I've asked forgiveness, but I also ask forgiveness and help me to those that may have done harm to me. None of our lives are a cakewalk by any means, but for me, I know my soul is at peace, my problems are few, and in the big picture of things, I like me, and I'm pretty happy being Joe, so I'm already winning. Thank you.